In 1890s New York, the typical Gilded Age millionaire literally spent more on a single dinner party than an average worker made in 15 years, and sometimes they'd throw those parties on horseback just because they could. Before we start, quick thing, if you actually listen to these regularly, hit like or subscribe. I always wonder where everyone's at, so comment your city and what time it is. Weird to think some of you are having breakfast in London while I'm recording this at night here in the States. Alright, tonight we're heading to the Gilded Age, but first get yourself comfortable. I mean properly comfortable. Adjust those pillows, pull up that blanket, because where we're going, you're going to want to be cozy for what comes next. Your eyes snap open in darkness. For a moment, panic grips you as you realize you're not in your familiar bed. The mattress beneath you feels different, too plush, too perfect. The sheets against your skin aren't your usual cotton, but something impossibly smooth, cool, like water flowing over your body. Confusion gives way to awareness as your eyes adjust to the gloom, revealing an enormous bedroom with ceilings so high they disappear into shadow. This isn't your bedroom. This isn't even your sanctuary. The first thing you notice is the air, stale despite the massive room, tainted with coal smoke that seeped in from outside. Next comes the weight of the covers, not one, but 6 heavy silk quilts and a fur throw that would have cost a year's wages for most people in 1895. You're in a mahogany 4-poster bed that could fit 8 people comfortably, with silk canopy and hand-embroidered curtains that probably took some poor seamstress's eyesight to complete. This bed alone would bankrupt most families, and it's just where you sleep. You take a deep breath, trying to process what's happening. Unlike your warm, temperature-controlled modern bedroom, this massive chamber is chilly despite a fire dying in the marble fireplace across the room. Because insulation, not really a priority when you have servants to stoke your fires all night long. And speaking of servants, a soft knock at the door sends your heart racing. "Enter," you call out, your voice sounding strange to your own ears. The door swings open and a uniformed man in his 50s steps in. He's dressed impeccably in black and white, his posture military straight. Behind him, 4 younger men in similar uniforms follow, each carrying silver trays. "Good morning, sir," the older man says, his tone deferential but not servile. "It's 7:15. I trust you slept well?" This, you realize with a start, is your valet. Not just any servant, but your personal manservant who probably knows more about your daily habits than your own wife does. Unlike your quick shower and coffee morning routine, you're about to experience how the 1% of the 1% start their day in the Gilded Age. "Shall I open the curtains, sir?" he asks, though he's already striding toward the massive windows. He pulls a cord, and mechanically the heavy velvet drapes part, revealing a grey New York morning. Fifth Avenue stretches below, already bustling with carriages and early delivery wagons. "Jesus," you mutter, taking in the view of Central Park across the street. "I mean, yes, thank you." The valet doesn't react to your slip. He's used to rich men being eccentric. He probably thinks you're nursing a hangover from whatever exclusive club you visited last night. "Your morning coffee, sir," he says, nodding to one of the younger servants who steps forward with a silver tray bearing a single cup of coffee in a hand-painted Sèvres porcelain cup that costs more than most people's monthly rent. You sit up, accepting the coffee. It's strong but laced with cream and sugar. Apparently your Gilded Age self has a sweet tooth. "Richardson," you say, the name coming to you from nowhere. "What's the schedule today?" The valet, Richardson, doesn't miss a beat. You have a breakfast meeting with Mr. Morgan and Mr. Carnegie at 9:30 in your private dining car. Your train departs Grand Central Depot at 9 sharp. This afternoon, Mrs. Astor's weekly reception at 3, which Mrs. Vanderhughes insisted you attend. Dinner this evening at Delmonico's with the governor and several gentlemen from the Railroad Commission. Jesus Christ, you have a private dining car, like an entire railroad car that belongs to you just for eating breakfast in. While you process this, Richardson is directing the other servants. One opens a set of double doors, revealing a bathroom that's bigger than your entire apartment back home. Inside, a clawfoot tub the size of a small boat is already filled with steaming water, rose petals floating on the surface. The brass fixtures aren't brass at all. They're solid gold. The sink basin appears to be carved from a single piece of marble. "Shall we proceed with your bath, sir?" Richardson asks. You nod, because what else can you do? Two servants step forward to help you out of your silk pajamas. This is apparently normal, being dressed and undressed like a life-sized doll. The concept of privacy as you understand it doesn't exist for the ultra-wealthy of the Gilded Age. Your body is just another possession to be maintained by staff. "Wait," you say, suddenly uncomfortable with the idea of multiple grown men watching you bathe. I can manage the bath myself this morning." Richardson's eyebrow twitches, the servant equivalent of a dramatic gasp. "As you wish, sir. Most unusual, but we shall wait in the dressing room. Ring when you're ready to be dried and dressed." The servants withdraw, leaving you alone in the palatial bathroom. Unlike your quick morning shower, bathing in 1895 is a production. The water is scented with imported oils. Beside the tub sits an array of soaps, each in its own silver dish. French milled, English lavender, Italian olive oil, the international array of cleansing products is dizzying. You slip into the bath, and for a moment the luxury is overwhelming. The water is perfectly heated, a luxury few could afford in an era when every drop of hot water required someone to haul fuel and tend a fire. As you soak, you notice something disturbing on your hands. Dirt under your manicured nails. Not just any dirt. Coal dust. The evidence of your empire, perhaps. You scrub it away, wondering what kind of industrial baron you've become. Steel, railroad, oil, banking, whatever it is, you're clearly at the top of the heap in an age when the richest 1% owned more wealth than the bottom 99% combined. The bathroom door cracks open. "Sir," Richardson's voice floats in. "The time?" "Yes, coming," you say, suddenly aware that you've spent 10 precious minutes just sitting in water, an incredible luxury when servants measure their workday by the clock. You step out of the tub, and immediately a servant appears with a warmed towel, another with a terry cloth robe. Embarrassment floods you as they efficiently dry your body, but you fight it down. This is normal for them, expected. They probably find it strange that you tried to bathe alone. "Would Sir prefer the grey worsted wool suit or the navy pinstripe for the meeting with Mr. Morgan?" Richardson asks, leading you into a dressing room larger than most people's entire homes. The walls are lined with custom-built mahogany cabinets displaying more clothing than you've owned in your entire life. Dozens of suits, hundreds of shirts, rows of shoes each on their own wooden tree, an entire cabinet just for cufflinks and tie pins, many glittering with diamonds and precious stones. "The Navy," you say, because it seems like a safe choice for meeting robber barons. What follows is a 20-minute production of getting you dressed. First, the underwear, not boxers or briefs, but a full-body one-piece cotton union suit that buttons up the front. Then wool socks held up by garters, a crisp white shirt with detachable collar and cuffs, a silk tie precisely knotted, a waistcoat, what you'd call a vest, with pearl buttons, and finally the suit jacket itself. "Your watch, sir?" Richardson says, presenting a solid gold pocket watch on a chain. You examine it, a Patek Philippe with your monogram engraved on the case, probably worth the equivalent of a modern luxury car. While you're being dressed, another servant enters. "Mr. Vander Hughes, your breakfast is served in the morning room." Your stomach growls on cue. The smell of bacon, eggs, fresh bread and coffee wafts up from downstairs. Unlike your rushed modern breakfast, maybe a granola bar or a quick bowl of cereal, breakfast in the Gilded Age is a serious meal. "I'll be down momentarily," you say, trying to sound authoritative. Richardson gives final adjustments to your clothing, brushing invisible dust from your shoulders, straightening your already perfect tie. "Will there be anything else, sir?" You look around the opulent dressing room at the army of servants waiting to fulfill your every whim, at the wealth on display in just your morning routine alone. "No, that will be all. Thank you." The servants nod and withdraw, leaving you alone for the first time since you woke up. You catch sight of yourself in a full-length mirror and barely recognize the person staring back. Perfectly groomed, impeccably dressed in clothing that cost more than most people make in months. You look every inch the Gilded Age billionaire, and it's only 8 in the morning. You make your way out of the bedroom suite into a hallway lined with oil paintings in ornate gold frames. The carpet beneath your feet is so thick and plush you can barely hear your own footsteps. A grand staircase curves down to the main floor, the banister gleaming mahogany polished by servants' hands. 2 housemaids curtsy as you pass. A footman stands at attention near the bottom of the stairs. The house feels like a luxury hotel, except it's all yours, or at least belonging to whatever version of you woke up in 1895. The morning room is flooded with light from tall windows. The table, which could seat 12 comfortably, is set for 1, with fine china, crystal and sterling silver flatware. A butler stands by, ready to serve you. "Good morning, sir," he says, pulling out your chair. You sit down, somewhat dazed by the extravagance of it all. The table before you bears enough food for a small family. Steak, eggs, bacon, sausages, toast, muffins, fruit, coffee, and tea. Apparently, breakfast in the Gilded Age is a feast. "The morning paper, sir," the butler says, presenting you with the New York Times on a silver tray. The headline catches your eye. Workers strike at steel mill. Violence erupts as Pinkertons called in. With a sinking feeling, you wonder if it's your steel mill they're talking about. As you unfold the paper, another headline jumps out. Vander Hughes consolidates railroad holdings, competitors cry monopoly. That's when it fully hits you. In this world, you're not just wealthy, you're one of them. The notorious robber barons, the men who built America's industrial might on the backs of desperate workers, the names school children would learn about a century later with a mixture of awe and distaste. The butler coughs discreetly. "Sir, Mr. Richardson asked me to remind you that your carriage will be ready in 20 minutes for your journey to Grand Central." You nod, suddenly not very hungry, despite the feast before you. "Thank you. Will you be requiring anything else, sir?" You look around at the opulent room, the abundance of food, the servants waiting to fulfill your every whim. Outside these walls, people are literally fighting and dying in your name, or against it. "No," you say quietly, "that will be all." You're going to meet J.P. Morgan and Andrew Carnegie for breakfast in your private railroad car, and somehow you need to figure out how to navigate this world of extreme wealth and privilege, where your every comfort comes at someone else's expense. The butler withdraws, leaving you alone with your thoughts and the morning paper. You take a sip of coffee from a cup that probably costs as much as a factory worker makes in a month. Welcome to the Gilded Age. You've woken up as one of the richest men in America. The day has barely begun, and already you're learning that all that glitters is not gold. In the quiet morning room, surrounded by luxury that most people couldn't even imagine, you start to realize the weight of the golden chains you've woken up wearing. You're at the pinnacle of society, but at what cost? As you prepare to leave for your meeting with your fellow industrialists, you can't help but wonder, in a world of such extremes, what does it really mean to have it all? You step outside your Fifth Avenue mansion into the crisp morning air. The noise hits you, first horses' hooves clopping on cobblestones, carriage wheels grinding, street vendors shouting. The smell follows horse manure mixed with coal smoke, a combination that defines city living in 1895. Not like your clean, regulated modern world with its emissions standards and sanitation departments. Your carriage waits at the bottom of the limestone steps. Not just any carriage, a gleaming black Brewster Landau with your monogram emblazoned on the door, pulled by 4 matched bay horses that probably cost more than most families make in 5 years. 2 footmen in forest green livery snap to attention as you approach. "Good morning, Mr. Van der Hughes," one says, opening the door with a white-gloved hand. Inside, the carriage is upholstered in butter-soft Moroccan leather. The windows are beveled crystal glass. A small cabinet reveals decanters of brandy, and whiskey, apparently morning drinking, is just another perk of being obscenely rich in the Gilded Age. As you settle into the plush seat, a thought hits you. You own people. Not literally, slavery's been over for 30 years, but practically. The coachman, the footman, the dozen house servants you've already encountered this morning, the hundreds of others working in your factories and offices and mines, they depend on you for their survival in an era with no social safety net, no unemployment benefits, no healthcare system. If you fire someone, their kids might starve. If you cut wages, families get evicted. If you ignore safety concerns in your factories, workers die. And from the newspaper headlines, it seems like your workers are currently striking against conditions you've imposed. Your stomach churns as the carriage lurches forward, joining the busy morning traffic headed downtown. Through the window, you see New York in all its Gilded Age contradictions. Ladies in Worth gowns stepping carefully over mud puddles, immigrant children in rags selling newspapers on corners. Construction everywhere, the city growing upward and outward at a frantic pace. "Look at that poor bastard," the coachman calls down to the footman riding beside him, not realizing you can hear every word. "Crushed his leg at the rail yard yesterday. Company just tossed him out without a penny. That's why I'd never work for Van der Hughes Rail. That son of a bitch would work us to death for an extra $1 in his pocket." The footman makes a shushing sound, nodding discreetly toward the carriage. Your blood runs cold. That's who you are here. That's your legacy. The traffic slows near Madison Square, and a beggar approaches the carriageman, missing an arm, his face gaunt with hunger. "Spare something for a veteran, sir?" he calls, his voice raspy. Before you can respond, one of your footmen jumps down and roughly shoves the man away. "Get back! You, Mr. Van der Hughes doesn't concern himself with your kind." "Please," you call out, surprising yourself. "Give him this." You reach into your pocket and find a gold coin and eagle, $10, a week's wages for many workers. The footman looks shocked but does as instructed, handing the coin to the stunned beggar. "God bless you, sir," the man calls as your carriage pulls away. The footman resumes his position, clearly confused by your uncharacteristic generosity. You realize you've broken character. The real Van der Hughes apparently isn't known for random acts of kindness. The carriage turns onto 42nd Street and Grand Central Depot comes into view, not the soaring Beaux-Arts terminal of later years, but its more modest predecessor. Still, it's an impressive structure crowned with a glass and cast iron roof. Your carriage bypasses the main entrance, continuing around to a private gate where two uniformed guards snap to attention. Mr. Vander Hughes, one says, opening the gate to a private driveway that leads directly to the train platforms. Wealth in the Gilded Age means never having to mingle with the common folk. Your carriage stops beside a train platform where a single railroad car sits gleaming in the morning light. Not connected to any train, just waiting for you. Holy shit, you mutter under your breath. This isn't just a private railcar, it's a palace on wheels, 60 feet long, painted a deep burgundy with gold leaf trim, and your monogram emblazoned on the side. A uniformed porter stands at attention on the small platform at the rear of the car. "Good morning, Mr. Vander Hughes," the porter says, opening the door for you. "Mr. Morgan has arrived and is waiting inside. Mr. Carnegie sends his apologies. He's running a few minutes behind." You nod, trying to act like this is all completely normal, and step into another world. The interior of the railcar makes first-class airplane cabins look like cattle cars. The floors are covered in Persian carpets so thick your feet sink into them. The walls are panelled in hand-carved mahogany, polished to a mirror shine. Crystal chandeliers hang from a ceiling painted with classical scenes. Apparently even the ceiling of your private railcar needs to show off your wealth. The main salon features plush velvet armchairs and sofas arranged around small tables. A fireplace, an actual working fireplace on a moving train, occupies one wall. At the far end, a dining table is set for breakfast with fine china, crystal, and sterling silver. And there, standing by one of the windows with a glass of whiskey already in hand, despite the early hour, is J.P. Morgan himself. You recognize him immediately from history books, the bulbous, purplish nose, the result of a skin condition called rhinophyma that he hated having mentioned, the intense eyes under heavy brows, the immaculate tailoring of his suit, the most powerful banker in America, possibly the world, a man who once single-handedly stopped a national financial panic by locking other bankers in his library until they agreed to his terms. "Or Vander Hughes," he says, not bothering with a first name or pleasantries. "You're late. It's 8:50 a.m. Your meeting isn't until 9:30. Traffic," you say simply, figuring brevity is safer when you have no idea what your relationship with this titan of finance might be. Morgan grunts, draining his whiskey. "Help yourself," he says, gesturing to a sideboard laden with decanters. Carnegie's train was delayed. Something about a workers' demonstration on the tracks. Damned nuisance. You pour yourself a small whiskey, mostly for show. "Quite. I've been looking at those reports you sent over," Morgan continues, fixing you with a stare so intense you have to force yourself not to look away. "The Western expansion numbers are solid, but this business with the strikes," he trails off, raising a bushy eyebrow. You scramble for a response that won't reveal your complete ignorance of your own business affairs. "Yes, well, labour troubles are an unfortunate reality these days." Morgan snorts. Fisk would have had those men shot and replaced by now. Jim Fisk, another railroad tycoon notorious for his ruthlessness. Your apparent peer group is a rogues gallery of the most cutthroat capitalists in American history. "I have my own methods," you say carefully. "Indeed you do," Morgan says, a hint of grudging respect in his tone. "Your handling of the Burlington situation was impressive, cold-blooded, but effective. Didn't think you had it in you." Before you can figure out what terrible thing you supposedly did to the Burlington Railroad, the door opens and in walks Andrew Carnegie, the steel magnate. Shorter than you expected, with a grey beard and the hint of his Scottish accent still present despite decades in America, a self-made man who started as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory and now controls the largest steel company in the world. "Gentlemen," Carnegie booms, surprisingly jovial for a man with his reputation. "Apologies for the delay. Some ungrateful workers decided to lie down on the tracks. Can you imagine? As if I don't pay them a perfectly adequate $3 a day to work only 12 hours in my mills." $3 for 12 hours of dangerous labour in a steel mill. You do the quick math, 25 cents an hour in blistering heat surrounded by molten metal and machinery that can kill in an instant. Morgan and Carnegie both laugh, clearly expecting you to join in. You manage a weak smile, a soft knock at the door, and the porter enters. "Gentlemen, breakfast is served, and the engineer informs me we'll be departing momentarily. You hadn't even noticed the train starting to move. The ride is so smooth. Through the windows, you see Grand Central Depot sliding away as your private palace on wheels begins its journey." The three of you move to the dining table, where a steward is already pouring coffee into fine bone china cups. The table is set with a feast that would feed a dozen people: smoked salmon, caviar, poached eggs, rashers of bacon, silver dishes of butter, baskets of fresh bread, and pastries. "Now then," Morgan says as he unfolds his napkin, "to business. The three of us control enough railroad stock to effectively set national freight rates. I propose we use that leverage. And just like that, you're participating in what is almost certainly an illegal conspiracy to fix prices across an entire industry. Price fixing that will raise costs for farmers shipping crops, for factories shipping goods, costs that will ultimately be passed down to regular people just trying to live their lives. The Interstate Commerce Act specifically forbids pooling arrangements, you say, recalling a dim fact from a long-ago history class. Morgan and Carnegie stare at you like you've grown a second head. "Since when do you care about government regulations?" Carnegie asks, genuine confusion in his voice. "Did your wife make you go to church yesterday?" He laughs at his own joke. Morgan is less amused. "The Interstate Commerce Commission is a paper tiger. Half the commissioners are former railroad men who will be looking for jobs with us when their terms end. They understand how business works." In other words, regulatory capture, the practice of industry controlling the very government bodies meant to oversee them, a problem that still exists in your own time. But here in the Gilded Age, it's not even hidden. It's just how business is done. "Of course," you say quickly. "I merely thought it worth mentioning the legal considerations." Morgan snorts. "Legal considerations didn't stop you from bribing that entire state legislature last year. What was it you called it? An investment in governmental relations." Jesus Christ. Apparently, you're not just a ruthless businessman, but an outright criminal in this timeline. "Now then," Carnegie says, spreading caviar on toast with the casual air of a man who's forgotten that fish eggs are a luxury. "I've been thinking about your offer for the Pittsburgh Central Line. I'm inclined to accept with certain conditions." You have no idea what offer he's talking about, but you nod as if you do. "I thought you might be. 15 million, not 12, Carnegie says, "and I want guaranteed shipping rates for my steel for the next decade." $15 million in 1895, money that's around $500 million in modern currency, and you're apparently negotiating this massive deal over breakfast. Morgan interjects, "What about the unions? Central's workers are organised. Will you handle that mess, or is Vander Hughes taking it on?" Carnegie waves a hand dismissively. "I've dealt with unions before." His face darkens momentarily, and you recall with a chill that this seemingly jovial man was responsible for the Homestead strike, where Pinkerton detectives and striking workers engaged in a gunfight that left 16 people dead. "My men can sort it out," you say vaguely. The train curves gently, and through the windows you see the Hudson River glittering in the morning sun. Your private car has now been coupled to a larger train heading north, though the ride remains so smooth you'd hardly know you were moving if not for the passing scenery. "Splendid," Carnegie says. "Now, what about our friend Huntington and his troublesome Southern Pacific? I heard rumours he's been meeting with your competitors." "Collis Huntington is not a concern," you say, trying to sound confident. Morgan fixes you with that unnerving stare again. "He controls enough track to cause problems if he aligns with the wrong people. Perhaps a friendly acquisition might be in order," Carnegie suggests, his tone making it clear that friendly is not what he means at all. "A hostile takeover, you mean?" Morgan says bluntly. "I prefer to think of it as aggressive negotiation," Carnegie replies with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. And there it is, the cutthroat reality of Gilded Age business. These men sitting with you, eating caviar in a private railcar worth millions, are casually discussing destroying another tycoon's business empire over breakfast, not for any greater economic good, not for the benefit of the customers or workers, but simply because they can, because power and wealth in this era are zero-sum games. "We could approach from different angles," you suggest, trying to sound like the titan of industry you apparently are. Morgan provides the financing pressure. I control enough connecting lines to isolate his key routes, and Carnegie, you trail off, not sure what a steel magnate brings to a railroad takeover. "My friendship with several newspaper publishers could ensure public opinion turns against him," Carnegie fills in smoothly, "and I do have the ear of certain influential congressmen." In other words, a coordinated attack, financial, operational, and political, designed to bring another wealthy man to his knees, the business equivalent of medieval warfare. Morgan nods appreciatively. "That's why I wanted this meeting. Three-pronged approach. Huntington won't know what hit him until it's too late." The porter appears with fresh coffee. "Gentlemen, we'll be arriving at Garrison in approximately 30 minutes. You have no idea why you're going to Garrison, a small town on the Hudson, but you nod as if this is expected. "Just enough time to finalize the details," Morgan says, pulling out a leather portfolio filled with papers. "I've had my men draw up the preliminary agreements." As Morgan and Carnegie dive into the legal minutiae of your business arrangement, you gaze out the window at the passing Hudson Valley. The autumn colours are stunning, the river a silver ribbon below steep cliffs. It's the same view that inspired the Hudson River School painters decades earlier. But you see it differently now. Those pristine forests, owned by timber companies that will clear-cut them without a second thought, that beautiful river, increasingly polluted by the factories sprouting along its banks, the picturesque small towns, filled with people working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, many of them children as young as 10. Everything has a price in the Gilded Age. Everything is a commodity to be bought, sold, exploited. "Vander Hughes?" Morgan's sharp voice cuts through your thoughts. "Are you listening? This paragraph concerns your liability in the event the ICC does decide to investigate." You turn back to the table, to these powerful men and their schemes. "Yes, of course." As you bend over the contracts that will further consolidate your control over the nation's vital infrastructure, a realization dawns. This is what being a billionaire means in the Gilded Age. Not just luxury and privilege, but power. The power to shape industries, to move markets, to decide the fates of thousands of workers with the stroke of a pen. And with that power comes the moral weight of how you use it. These men view workers as replaceable parts in their industrial machines, view regulations as inconveniences to be circumvented, view competitors as enemies to be crushed. Is that who you are in this world? Is that who you want to be? As the train glides smoothly toward Garrison, you face the uncomfortable truth that in the Gilded Age there is no clean money. The entire system is built on exploitation of workers, of natural resources, of government corruption. To be at the top of this system means having blood on your hands, metaphorically, if not literally. One last thing, Carnegie says as he signs the final document with a flourish. My wife is hosting a little gathering at our place in New York next week, just 100 or so of our closest friends. He chuckles at what passes for a small gathering among the ultra-wealthy. She specifically asked that you and Mrs. Van der Hughes attend. Apparently your wife made quite an impression at the Vanderbilt ball last month. You have a wife. Of course you do. Another detail about your Gilded Age life that you've just discovered. We wouldn't miss it, you say, wondering what kind of person would marry the ruthless robber baron you apparently are. The train begins to slow as it approaches Garrison Station. Outside, you can see a horse-drawn carriage waiting presumably for you and your breakfast companions. Excellent, Morgan says, collecting the signed papers. Gentlemen, I believe our business is concluded for now. A productive morning. As the train comes to a halt and the porter appears to assist with your departure, you take one last look around the opulent private car. The half-eaten breakfast that cost more than a labourer makes in a week. The fine china and crystal used once and then to be washed by servants. The sheer, staggering excess of it all. You've just participated in a conspiracy to manipulate national transportation prices and destroy a business rival. You've learned that you regularly bribe government officials and exploit workers. You've glimpsed the callous disregard for human suffering that characterizes the business leaders of this era, and it's still not even noon. After your breakfast conspiracy meeting with Morgan and Carnegie, you find yourself back in your carriage, headed toward Madison Square. The morning's business dealings have left a sour taste in your mouth, but there's no time to dwell on moral quandaries. Your social calendar beckons, and in the Gilded Age, social obligations are just as critical to survival as business ones. "Where to, sir?" your driver calls down. You consult the small leather notebook you found in your jacket pocket. Inside, in elegant handwriting, not yours, is a detailed schedule of your day. Home first, you reply, then to Mrs. Astor's at 3. Mrs. Astor, even you, with your limited historical knowledge, recognize that name. Caroline Astor, the Mrs. Astor, the self-appointed gatekeeper of New York society. The woman who, along with social arbiter Ward McAllister, created the famous 400, the definitive list of who mattered in New York society. Named because that was supposedly the number of people who could fit comfortably in her ballroom, though really it was about creating artificial scarcity in a world of expanding wealth. Getting on that list meant you'd arrived. Staying off it meant social death. Your carriage turns onto Fifth Avenue, rejoining the parade of wealth making its way up and down Manhattan's most fashionable street. Ladies in enormous hats stroll with parasols. Gentlemen tip their bowlers to acquaintances. Children in sailor suits are paraded by their nursemaids. It's a carefully orchestrated display of leisure and prosperity. As your carriage approaches your mansion, you notice something you missed in your morning departure: the building itself. 5 stories of limestone and marble, designed in the French Renaissance style that's all the rage among New York's elite. Massive bay windows, intricate cornices, a copper mansard roof already developing a green patina. The thing looks like a cross between a palace and a wedding cake. Your neighbours include the Vanderbilts, the Goulds, the Whitneys, who's who of Gilded Age wealth. Real estate values on this stretch of Fifth Avenue are among the highest in the world. The carriage stops and the footman leaps down to open your door. As you step out, you notice a woman watching you from one of the bay windows on the 2nd floor. She quickly moves away when your eyes meet. Your wife, perhaps? The butler opens the front door before you reach it. "Welcome home, sir. Madam is in the morning room and asked to see you upon your return." Madam, your wife definitely has a name, but apparently even the household staff refers to her by her title rather than anything so personal as a name. The formality of Gilded Age life continues to astound you. "Thank you," you say, handing off your hat and gloves to a waiting footman. "I'll see her now." The butler looks momentarily surprised at your courtesy. Apparently, "thank you" isn't a phrase that often passes your lips in this timeline, but quickly recovers his professional demeanour. "Very good, sir." You follow him through the grand entrance hall, past priceless artwork and furnishings, to a sunny room overlooking the side garden. And there she is, your wife. She sits at a delicate writing desk, penning correspondence on monogrammed stationery. Her morning dress is simpler than you expected, just cream silk with subtle lace trim, but still obviously expensive. Her dark hair is piled atop her head in an intricate arrangement that must have taken her lady's maid an hour to create. She looks up as you enter, her expression guarded. "You wanted to see me?" you ask, suddenly nervous. "What kind of relationship do you have with this woman? Are you cruel to her? Distant? Loving?" "George," she says, using your apparent first name, "I wanted to confirm you'll be accompanying me to Caroline's this afternoon." She was quite pointed in her invitation that both of us should attend. Her tone is formal but not cold. This seems to be a marriage of business partners rather than passionate lovers typical for the upper classes of this era, where marriages were often strategic alliances between wealthy families. "Of course," you reply. 3 o'clock, correct?" She nods, studying your face with a slight frown. "Are you feeling well? You seem different today." Apparently, your Gilded Age persona is consistent enough that even small deviations in behaviour are noticeable. "Just a demanding morning with Morgan and Carnegie," you say, which isn't exactly a lie. Her expression softens slightly. "Those men would try the patience of a saint." A brief, genuine smile crosses her face, and you catch a glimpse of the woman beneath the formal exterior. "Though I dare say you're their equal in stubbornness." There's almost affection in her voice. Perhaps this marriage isn't as cold as it first appeared. "Will you join me for luncheon?" she asks. "The new chef has prepared a quail salad, and I find I've grown tired of dining alone." The words carry weight. You dine alone often, it seems. You're not winning any Husband of the Year awards in this timeline. "I'd like that," you say, and mean it. Surprise flickers across her face, followed by a more genuine smile. "Wonderful. I'll have Burton set another place." Burton, presumably, the butler nods and withdraws silently. Lunch with your wife turns out to be a surprisingly pleasant affair. Her name, you discover through careful conversation, is Constance. She's intelligent, well-read, and possesses a dry wit that emerges when it's just the two of you. You learn that you have 2 children, a son away at boarding school. and a daughter who's currently in Europe with her governess on a cultural tour. The conspicuous absence of your children in the massive house seems to be perfectly normal for your social class. You're in an unusually good mood, Constance observes as you finish your coffee. Generally, meetings with your railroad associates leave you positively bearish. You shrug. Perhaps I'm learning to appreciate the finer things. You gesture to the elegant luncheon table, but your eyes stay on her. She actually blushes slightly. George, really, at our age? There's a history here you don't know, a relationship with its own patterns and boundaries that you're disrupting simply by being a bit kinder than usual. It makes you wonder what kind of man you are in this world. That simple courtesy and attention make your wife look at you like you've grown a second head. I should dress for Caroline's, Constance says, rising from the table. It wouldn't do to be late. Heaven forbid, you say with a touch of sarcasm that makes her smile again. You know how she is. 3 o'clock means 3 o'clock, not 5 past, not 5 minutes till. The woman runs her drawing room like a German train station. You laugh, and she looks pleased at having amused you. There's a glimpse of what might have been a warm relationship once, now buried under years of wealth and social obligation. Constance leaves to prepare, and you have some time to yourself. You wander the mansion, trying to learn more about your life here. Your private study is a masculinely decorated room with leather-bound books, hunting trophies. Apparently you've shot everything from lions to elephants, and a massive desk piled with paperwork. You leaf through some of the documents reports from railroad operations across the country, stock certificates, property deeds. The scale of your wealth is dizzying. You own land in 27 states. You have controlling interest in 12 different railroad companies. You have investments in steel mills, coal mines, oil fields, banks. One document catches your eye, a letter from your mine superintendent in Pennsylvania. Regarding your inquiry about safety improvements, I must advise against the expenditure at this time. The mesh screening would cost approximately $1,200 to install throughout the mine and would reduce casualties by an estimated 30%. However, it is more economical to simply replace workers as accidents occur. At current wages, we can hire 3 new men for the cost of 1 screening installation. I recommend we continue with present operations. And there, at the bottom, in what you recognize as your own handwriting, agreed, no action needed. Your stomach turns. You've literally calculated that workers' lives are worth less than basic safety equipment. And the worst part, this cold calculation is perfectly normal business practice in the Gilded Age. A soft knock at the door interrupts your moral crisis. Sir, it's Richardson, your valet. It's time to dress for Mrs. Astor's reception. The next half hour is consumed with the elaborate ritual of preparing for an afternoon social event. Different clothes from morning attire, of course, a frock coat instead of a morning coat, grey striped trousers, a silk waistcoat, a different pocket watch with a different chain, cuff links that cost more than most people's homes. By the time you descend the grand staircase, Constance is waiting in the entrance hall. She's transformed herself into a walking display of wealth. Her afternoon dress is a masterpiece of pale blue silk and lace with a cinched waist and a modest bustle. Sapphires and diamonds glitter at her throat and ears. Her hands are gloved in kid leather so fine it looks painted on. "You look beautiful," you say, and mean it. She seems pleased but confused by the compliment. "Thank you, George. Shall we?" Your carriage ride to the Astor Mansion on 5th Avenue and 65th Street is short but significant. You're literally travelling from the new money section of 5th Avenue to the old money stronghold. The geographical division mirrors the social one, the old Knickerbocker families on one end, the nouveau riche industrialists on the other, with an invisible but impenetrable barrier between them. Or remember, Constance says quietly as your carriage joins the line approaching the Astor mansion. Caroline was particularly insistent we attend today. I suspect she has something specific in mind. Any guess what, you ask? She mentioned the Newport season next summer. Perhaps she's planning something. Or she hesitates. There's been talk about her son John and our Elizabeth. A potential marriage alliance, you realise. Your absent daughter is being considered as a match for the Astor heir. Such a union would solidify your family's social position while injecting the Astors with fresh capital. A perfect Gilded Age arrangement. I see, you say neutrally, wondering how you feel about essentially selling your daughter to raise your social status. The Astor mansion comes into view, another limestone palace, though more restrained and elegant than the flashier homes of the new millionaires. A line of carriages disgorges expensively dressed guests. Do try to be civil to Ward McAllister, Constance murmurs as your carriage pulls up. I know you find him ridiculous, but he still has Caroline's ear. Ward McAllister, the self-appointed social arbiter who created the 400 list with Mrs. Astor, a man so obsessed with social minutiae that he once wrote, "It takes 4 generations to make a gentleman." By that calculation, no one who made their fortune after the Revolution would qualify, conveniently excluding all the new industrial millionaires threatening the old guard's dominance. I'll be the soul of courtesy, you promise, as the footman opens your carriage door. The reception is already in full swing when you enter the Astor drawing room. About 50 people mill about, the women in elaborate afternoon dresses, the men in frock coats. Servants circulate with champagne and tiny canapes. The room itself is a testament to old money taste. Elegant, but not showy. Expensive but not ostentatious, filled with antiques and artwork acquired over generations rather than bought en masse to fill a new mansion. Mr. and Mrs. Van der Hughes, the butler announces, and heads turn. You feel the weight of dozens of gazes, some curious, some dismissive, some calculating. You're being assessed, categorized, judged. Are you still new money, or have you ascended to proper society? Is your railroad fortune now respectable, or still tainted by its recent acquisition? Are you worth cultivating as a connection, or better kept at arm's length? George, Constance, Caroline Astor herself approaches, a regal woman in her 60s dressed in dark purple silk. How good of you to come. The formidable Mrs. Astor offers her hand, which you bow over slightly. She gives you an appraising look, as if checking whether you've developed any unfortunate habits since she last saw you. Caroline, your home is as lovely as ever, Constance says with practiced ease. Thank you, my dear. George, I understand you've been expanding your interests in the Western Territories. John was just speaking of it with some gentlemen by the fireplace. Perhaps you'd care to join them? It's not really a request. You're being directed to the men's conversation, while the women have their own separate discussions. Gender segregation is alive and well in Gilded Age socializing. Of course, you say, allowing yourself to be guided toward a group of men clustered near the marble fireplace. John Jacob Astor, with Caroline's son and heir to the Astor Fortunais holding court. Handsome, in his early 30s, impeccably dressed and mannered, he's the epitome of old money confidence. Around him are several other men of similar age and bearing, all with names you'd recognize from New York street signs and buildings. Or Van der Hughes, Astor greets you with a slight nod. We were just discussing the troubling situation at the mines. Dreadful business. Your pulse quickens. What troubling situation? The strikes mentioned in the morning paper? Some accident? The callous safety decision you discovered in your study? Indeed, you say, non-committally. These labour agitators are becoming a genuine concern, says another man. You catch the name Livingston on his introduction. When workers start believing they deserve more than the market dictates, the entire economic system is threatened. My father always says that a man willing to work will always find fair compensation, adds another young scion sipping champagne. These strikers simply want something for nothing. They're waiting for you to agree, to join in this smug dismissal of workers literally dying for a living wage. This is a test. Do you think like them? Are you one of them? The situation is complex, you say carefully. Working conditions in many industries are genuinely dangerous. Perhaps addressing some legitimate concerns would reduce the appeal of labour organisers. The men stare at you like you've started speaking Chinese. My dear fellow, Asta says with a forced laugh, you sound positively progressive. Next you'll be suggesting we invite union representatives to Newport for the summer. The others chuckle, crisis averted. They've decided you're making an awkward joke, not expressing a sincere opinion. Speaking of Newport, Asta continues, Mother tells me you finally acquired property there. Bellevue Avenue, isn't it? Another test. Bellevue Avenue is where the most prestigious summer cottages are located, mammoth mansions used only 8 weeks a year. Yes, construction is nearly complete, you say, hoping that's true. Splendid. Perhaps we'll see more of your charming daughter next season. Elizabeth, isn't it? Mother mentioned she's touring Europe currently. And there it is, the hint about your daughter. Asta is considering her as a potential match, a business transaction dressed up as romance, your nouveau riche money combined with his old family name, a classic Gilded Age alliance. Yes, she's in Paris at present, you say, again hoping it's true. She's quite taken with the Louvre. Excellent. A girl should be cultivated. My mother insists upon it. The conversation shifts to yachting, then horse racing, the acceptable pastimes of the leisure class. You navigate carefully, letting others talk more than you do, dropping vague comments that could mean anything. Meanwhile, across the room, you can see Constance engaged in what appears to be an intense conversation with Caroline Astor and several other women. Their faces are pleasant, their postures relaxed, but you can sense the social combat happening beneath the surface. After about an hour of this exhausting social performance, a subtle shift happens in the room. People begin to drift toward the entrance. The reception is ending precisely at 5 o'clock, of course. Caroline Astor would never commit the vulgarity of an event that drags on too long. As you and Constance retrieve your outer garments from servants, Caroline approaches once more. We're so looking forward to seeing your Newport home completed, she says. Perhaps you'll host a little gathering there once the season begins. Nothing elaborate, of course, just intimate friends. Translation, you've passed the test. You're being invited to host an event that Caroline Astor might actually attend, the ultimate social benediction. We'd be delighted, Constance replies, a hint of genuine pleasure breaking through her social mask. Caroline smiles thinly. Wonderful. Oh, and do bring Elizabeth. John mentioned how much he enjoyed their conversation at the opera last winter. With that parting shot, a clear signal that your daughter is being considered for the ultimate social elevation, Caroline moves on to the next departing guests. In the carriage ride home, Constance practically vibrates with suppressed excitement. Did you hear? She as good as invited herself to Newport, and the way she mentioned Elizabeth and John George, do you realize what this means? I believe so, you say, watching the emotions play across her face. After all these years, she says, more to herself than to you. All the snubs, the closed doors, the whispers about new money and Western vulgarity. Finally. You see it clearly now, the driving force behind your wife's life, perhaps behind your entire marriage, social acceptance, the desperate need to be recognized as equals by people whose only claim to superiority is having gotten rich earlier than you did. It seems so petty, so meaningless compared to the life and death concerns of the workers in your mines and factories, but in the Gilded Age social hierarchy, this is survival of a different kind. Constance has been fighting a war with weapons of calling cards and dinner invitations, and she's finally glimpsing victory. "You don't seem as pleased as I expected," she says, studying your face. "I was just thinking about the cost," you reply truthfully. She misunderstands. "The Newport house. I know it's been dreadfully expensive, but surely it's worth it for what it will mean for Elizabeth's future. An Astor match. Even your father couldn't have dreamed so high. The real cost, you think but don't say, is much higher than dollars. It's the crushing of workers' lives to build fortunes. It's the corruption of government to protect those fortunes. It's the reduction of your daughter to a commercial transaction to be traded for social status." But in the gathering dusk of Fifth Avenue, as your carriage rolls past other limestone palaces just like yours, you keep these thoughts to yourself. You're learning that survival in the Gilded Age requires different masks for different situations: ruthless businessman, social climber, family patriarch. The carriage turns into your driveway, and servants appear to assist your descent. The massive doors of your mansion swing open, revealing the glittering interior lit by electric lights, another status symbol, as most homes still use gas. "I should rest before dinner," Constance says as you enter. "We're dining at Delmonico's with the governor tonight, remember? Another social obligation, another performance to give. The Gilded Age day is far from over." "Of course," you say. "I'll see you then." As Constance ascends the grand staircase, you're left alone in the entrance hall, surrounded by marble and mahogany and gold leaf, displays of wealth that cost so much yet somehow feel hollow. You're starting to understand that the true currency of the Gilded Age isn't just money, it's social position, influence, power, and the pursuit of these things consumes every waking hour of the elite. As you prepare for yet another social performance at dinner, you wonder if anyone in this glittering world is truly happy, or if they're all just trapped in golden cages of their own making. Dinner at Delmonico's with the governor turns out to be exactly what you'd expect from Gilded Age politics, an elaborate dance of influence, money, and power thinly disguised as a social occasion. The restaurant itself is a temple to excess. Located at the corner of 5th Avenue and 26th Street, Delmonico's is where the elite of New York dine when they wish to be seen. The moment you and Constance step through the doors, you're enveloped in a world of crystal chandeliers, thick carpets, and gilt-framed mirrors. The air smells of expensive cigars, French sauces, and money. Governor Flower, a portly man with impressive mutton chop whiskers, greets you with the practiced warmth of a career politician. Vander Hughes and the lovely Mrs. Vander Hughes, delighted, absolutely delighted. Around a private table in the back room, you meet the rest of your dinner companions, 2 state senators, a judge, and several businessmen who are clearly lobbyists. Their wives sit in a cluster at one end of the table while the men congregate at the other. The gender segregation is automatic, unquestioned. The conversation flows along with the Wiener Chateau Lafite that costs more per bottle than a factory worker makes in a month. As the turtle soup is served, you realise the true purpose of this dinner. A proposed bill affecting railroad taxation is coming up in the state legislature, and these men want to ensure it dies a quiet death. "The problem, you see," drawls one of the senators between slurps of soup, "is that the public has gotten this absurd notion that railroads should pay their fair share, as if the economic benefit of transportation wasn't contribution enough." "Quite," agrees the judge, who apparently sees no conflict of interest in dining with men whose cases might come before his court. The rabble-rousers in the press stir them up with talk of fair taxation and public interest. Complete nonsense. The governor turns to you. "Your thoughts, Vander Hughes. You have more track laid in this state than almost anyone." All eyes turn to you, waiting. This is clearly a moment where your Gilded Age self would be expected to voice strong opinions. But what would you say? "I believe," you begin carefully, "that we must balance the legitimate needs of business with the long-term stability of the state. Prosperity depends on both." The men stare at you blankly. That was apparently not the fire-breathing defense of corporate interests they expected. Governor Flower recovers first. "Well said, well said. Balance, indeed, that's precisely why I'm considering a compromise bill, one that appears to increase taxation while providing generous exemptions for essential infrastructure investments. In other words, a bill designed to look like reform while actually preserving the status quo." Classic Gilded Age politics. "I'd be happy to have my secretary draft some, suggested language for such exemptions you offer, getting the hang of this game." The governor beams. "Excellent, your expertise would be most valuable." As the dinner progresses through 7 more courses, each more elaborate than the last, you participate in what amounts to a conspiracy to defraud the public. The tax bill is just the beginning. There's a discussion of judicial appointments. We need men of reason on the bench. Railway commission staffing. Johnson's boy needs a position, and even a proposed amendment to the state constitution to protect business interests from short-sighted regulation. And through it all, money is never directly mentioned. No crude offers of cash for votes. The Gilded Age elite are too sophisticated for that. Instead, there are discussions of campaign donations, investment opportunities, board positions for relatives, and exclusive club memberships. The corruption is wrapped in layers of respectability, just as the rotten core of industrial capitalism is gilded with the appearance of prosperity. By the time dessert arrives, a towering confection of ice cream, spun sugar, and gold leaf, you've witnessed more corruption in one meal than most people see in a lifetime. And the most disturbing part? Everyone at the table, including your Gilded Age self, considers this perfectly normal. The evening finally ends around 10 o'clock. As you and Constance settle into your carriage for the ride home, she looks pleased. "That went well," she says. "The governor's wife invited us to their summer place in the Adirondacks. She rarely extends such invitations. Another social victory. You're climbing a ladder where each rung represents access to an ever more exclusive circle. And did you notice how respectfully the senator treated you?" she continues. "A far cry from 3 years ago when he refused to even acknowledge us at the opera. You make an appropriate noise of agreement, but your mind is elsewhere. The casual corruption of the dinner has left you unsettled. Is this what power looks like in the Gilded Age? Men in private rooms carving up the state to serve their interests while people starve in tenements a few blocks away? Back at your mansion, Richardson is waiting to help you change for the night. The ritual of undressing is nearly as elaborate as dressing, with each garment carefully removed, inspected, and handed off to specialized servants. As Richardson helps you into a silk dressing gown, he coughs discreetly. "Sir, there was a telegram while you were out, from Newport." He hands you a yellow piece of paper. The message is brief. Construction completed, stop furniture installed, stop staff hired, stop ready for inspection, stop. Your Newport cottage is apparently finished, the summer palace you've built to cement your social status among the elite. Also, sir, Richardson continues, your private car has been prepared for tomorrow's journey as requested. You hadn't known you were leaving tomorrow, but apparently your Gilded Age self had already made plans to visit Newport and inspect your new summer home. Thank you, Richardson. What time do we depart? 9 o'clock, sir. Mrs. Van der Hughes has chosen to remain in the city to oversee preparations for next week's dinner party. You'll be travelling alone. That simplifies things. You won't have to maintain your charade in front of Constance, at least for a day or two. Oh, very good. Good night, Richardson. Good night, sir. Left alone in your opulent bedroom, you find sleep elusive. The day's events swirl in your mind, the business conspiracy with Morgan and Carnegie, the social manoeuvring at the Astor reception, the political corruption at dinner. Is this what it means to be wealthy in the Gilded Age? Is this success? You drift off eventually, but your dreams are troubled by images of workers trapped in burning factories, of children labouring in coal mines, of families huddled in tenement rooms while you sleep under silk in a room bigger than their entire building. Morning comes too soon. You're awoken again by Richardson and his team of servants, the elaborate dressing ritual is performed, and by 8:30 you're in your carriage headed for Grand Central Depot. Your private railcar awaits, just as luxurious as yesterday, but configured differently. The dining table has been removed and the seating arranged for daytime travel. A desk has been set up with papers neatly stacked. Apparently you're expected to work during the 5-hour journey to Newport. The porter greets you with a bow. Good morning, Mr. Van der Hughes. We'll be departing momentarily. Cook has prepared breakfast whenever you're ready, and I've laid out the morning papers. As the train pulls out of the station, you settle into a leather armchair and examine the pile of newspapers. The headlines are a window into the Gilded Age. Steel strike continues, violence reported, tenement fire kills 23 in Lower East Side. President Cleveland denies tariff changes. Mrs. Astor's reception draws society elite. That last one catches your eye. You scan the article and find your name listed among the attendees, with a special mention of your intimate conversation with John Jacob Astor IV and speculation about a possible match between the Astor and Van der Hughes families.